Hello and welcome back to Vox Terra, aka Hidden Agendas. Today we're talking about Trump's executive orders defunding National Public Radio and PBS over alleged bias. Well, before I tackle this alleged bias or this claim of bias, which I'll say there's some truth in that, so I really hope I got some conservatives listening here. Before I tackle that, I just want to say National Public Radio and PBS have excellent journalistic standards in my belief. Any bias aside, and their local affiliates provide news and information in news deserts. And not just America, but humanity needs credible information, credible data, credible statistics. And these biases that may or may not exist, if people know how to spot them, can be addressed. If people have the courage to. And I'm going to conclude with the argument that where there is bias, whether it's conservative or anti-conservative rather, and I'll argue also, I would make the claim in a sense, depending how you define it, there's an anti-left bias, a true left bias. But I'll say where there is any bias, the way to address this is actually the very opposite of what the Trump administration is calling for, what the Republicans are calling for. If you are socially conservative, like I would agree that in these culture war issues, especially, and here's where it really gets painful and awkward and where people don't have the courage to say it, so don't kill the messenger here, especially around narratives that dominate aspects of the LGBTQ politics or the political thinking or the thinking that dominates that movement. The narratives really start feeling very one-sided, and any voices questioning, like, is it really a good idea? Is it really grounded in such hard science that we can't question, performing surgeries or hormonal treatments on underage people that we can't even question that's not being questioned? That does feel like a built-in bias. But there's another sort of a built-in bias with it, and that's, I would say, anti-left if we're defining the left as those questioning those moneyed interests that really dominate our society. And chief among those are going to be two, in my opinion, large ones: fossil fuel petrochemicals and that military-industrial complex. So like the rest of the media, the bad guys are the bad guys. The bad nations are the bad nations. It's just unquestioned there are enemies, and that really serves that defense industry, that narrative. And this goes across the board in all of our media outlets. And whenever you hear extreme weather event after extreme weather event, PBS and NPR will occasionally tie them back to climate change. Thank you for doing that. But it's rare. It's the exception rather than the rule. And often when climate change is mentioned, it's rarely tied back to fossil fuel burning. So what's the solution to this built-in, I guess, a cultural, taking one side of narrative on some of the cultural issues, but then following the same downplaying of these money ties or not emphasizing them enough, not shining enough light on them? Like, what's all that fossil fuel money going to Trump and the Republicans? Why aren't we looking at that harder? The solution is not defunding public radio, public media, PBS. The solution is fully funding it, because they have to go hat in hand to wealthy donors, the same as everyone else does in this world. CNN, Fox, they need those advertising dollars. So the solution, make them not have to go hat in hand to anybody. Make them just, here, we as Americans, we as human beings need good, credible journalism. We need good, credible data. Let's have those high journalistic standards like NPR and PBS have, and let's just fully fund them with the public sector so they don't have to go around, asking for donations from people who have their money from these different industries, and then have their built-in biases of what kind of social agendas they want. So if you found this interesting and some good food for thought, if you did, please make sure you're subscribed, you're liking, you're commenting. Check out the Etsy shop link I'm going to put down there. I think it's to a place called Revolutionary Graphics. They got interesting t-shirt against oil drilling and warning about climate change. Please donate to Patreon. Thank you to my 2 patrons. And as always, until next time, peace be with you.